Hello everyone and welcome back to our physical sciences or amutong sciences na subject. So for this quarter, we have physical sciences. So congratulations to everyone nga nakapasar na who passed our quarter 2 uh, which we had Earth and Life Sciences. So for today, starting today, we are going to tackle about physical sciences. So there are two main branches for physical sciences. We have chemistry and physics. For quarter 3, we are going to deal with chemistry. So for this quarter, we started with module 3, which talks about the polarity of molecules. Okay, so without further ado, let us start our discussion. So, what is common within the group of objects? So, makita nato din ha, natay battery, we have a magnet, we have the earth, which shows our north pole and our south pole. We also have a pencil and we have a flat board. So, the question is, what is the common thing about these group of objects, no? And the last one is, what is the difference between the two groups? So, mo na siya nga to ang itakel karon. So, unsa ba jud ni siya, no? What does it mean? No, kung unsa ba ang connection ani nga group of objects sa ato ang lesson for today. So, let us proceed with the next slide. So, our topic for today is all about polarity. Okay, so polarity means having dipoles or duha ka poles. Once we say di, it comes from the word root words nga di, which means two, and poles, of course, poles. Kanang at the end gani, at the end of your edges of your certain object. For example, is a magnet or a battery, di ba na siya duha ka tumoy, no? So it has a positive side and it has a negative side. So therefore, kana siyang object is na siya dipole or polarity, no? So means having dipoles, a positive and a negative end. Based on polarity, molecules can also be classified, can either to be polar or non-polar. So unsa maning polar molecules and non-polar molecules. So polar molecules, these are of course molecules that have dipoles, which means nga na siya positive end, napud siya negative end. Whereas ang non-polar doesn't have a positive or a negative end. Both sides or both ends of your molecules kay neutral. Kanang murag wala siya overpowering na charge. Okay, so that molecule could be classified as non-polar. Now, ang polarity no sa mga molecules kay dako kaayo ang influence sa electronegativity. So, electronegativity or EN is the measurement or measures the relative tendency of an atom to attract electrons to itself when chemically combined with other atoms. So, we already know what a molecule is. No, ang molecule kay composed na siya with different atoms bonded chemically. Karon, kaning mga molecules nani, no, once nag-combine na sila, ang individual atoms naa sila property nga gitawag nato nga electronegativity. So, naay mga atoms nga taas ang electronegativity, which means nga kani siya nga mga atoms kusog siya mobira og electrons. Whereas naapoy kanang mga atoms nga baba ang electronegativity. That means medyo hinay siya mobira og atoms compared sa other atoms nga taas og electronegativity. So what happens is pag kaning mga atoms na ni mag-bind sila or mag-bond sila, no, since ang isa is mas taas man og electronegativity compared sa other, so biraw niya ang electrons padulong sa iyahang kaugalingon. Remember that electrons are negatively charged. Therefore, pag katong mas electronegative nga atom kay birahon niya ang electrons, therefore mag-create siya og uneven na distribution of electrons. Electrons is negatively charged, therefore katong kusog mo bira mas mahimo siyang more electronegative. So magkaroon siya og partial negative na charge. Whereas katong isa, katong gibirahan og electron, that means nga nakuhaan siya electrons. That means na mas nag-overpower ang positive niya nga charge. Therefore, kung ingana ang mahitabo, no, ingana ang mahitabo, mas magkaroon siya og positive or partial positive nga charge. That is the reason why nganong na unevenness, nganong nahinitabo nga positive ug negative charges sa ato ang molecules. So kato siya nga example nako, pag naa gani siya positive and negative charge, ang tawag ato nga molecule kay polar, di ba? Poles. Na siya duha ra ka poles. Whereas kung naamon po yung mga molecules nga mag-cancel out, meaning walay mahitabo nga uneven nga distribution of electrons or charges, of course. That is why those molecules are called non-polar molecules. Okay? So, ang atong electronegativity, para mas dali na to siya kuan, is you just use your periodic table of elements. No? So, naa din ha makita ang electronegativity nga value or EN value sa imuhang specific nga atom. So, ang atong periodic table, no, that is the best cheating na device na pwede na ito magamit, no, in every chemistry class. Kaya naa din ha nakalista ang tanan. All you need to do is know the trends and know the values written there in your periodic table because everything could be found there. Okay? So pangitaan niyo din ha kung asa dapitin ha ang electronegativity. Use the legend or katong murag illustration kasagaran sa mga periodic table na siya sa ibabaw. I-explain dira gyud mga arrows din ha kung asa ang kani siya nga value. So probably kani kasagaran mo siya ang symbol, no, and then kanang nasa ibabaw niya is iyang atomic number. Pangitaa lang dira ang arrow nga nag-indicate for electronegativity value. Okay, so ang common trend for electronegativity sa atong periodic table kay naga-increase siya from left to right. So if you're going to navigate your periodic table from left to right, makita niyo ang trend. You can see the trend that the electronegativity values kay increasing from left to right. Whereas it decreases from top to bottom. So nagagamay siya gikan sa taas pababa. Okay? I will repeat. Nagadako ang imong EN from left to right, nagababa imong EN from top to bottom. So that is what you call the trend or electronegativity trend of the periodic table. So now, let's proceed with the most important part, the electronegativity difference. So, ang kani siya nga value, no, mo ni siya ang isa sa pinaka effective way para ma-determine nato kung ang isa ka molecule or ang isa ka molecule kay polar siya or non-polar. Kay mo ni siya ang simplest nga calculation para mabalan nato kung polar or non-polar ang imuhang molecule. So how do we do it? There are two ways to get the electronegativity difference. Okay? First way is get the bigger value, katong mas larger nga EN value kung tayo nakay duha ka atoms, no, imo silang imong tan-awon kung unsa ni siya, kung mag-combine sila, is it a polar or a non-polar molecule. So ang imong buhaton is pangitaon nimo ang EN value gamit ang periodic table. You may use the periodic table and look for its EN value, then write it down, and then the larger value or the larger EN value minusan nimo, or you take away the smaller of EN value, and then the answer of that would be your electronegativity difference. Let us tackle about the second way of how to get the electronegativity difference, and then after that I will explain to you how can EN difference could be used, no, or change in EN can be used in identifying or determining whether a molecule is polar or non-polar. So a second way is get the difference of the two En values. So walay kaso kung ang mauna is gamay or ang mauna is dako. Basta get the difference of the two En values, and then if negative ang imong makuha, get the absolute value of the En. Remember, di ba, pagkwaon na to ang absolute value sa imuhang any nga number, kay mahimo siyang positive. So, basically, kani siyang way is, kung negative ang answer, imuho lang siyang himuon nga positive. Kwaon nimo ang iyang positive nga value. And then, ang En difference is mo ni siya ang ato ang makuha, no? So, for example, your En difference is less than or equal to 0.4, therefore your bond type would be nonpolar covalent. Whereas kung ang imong makuha nga electronegativity difference is 0.5 to 1.6, therefore your molecule is polar covalent, ang iyang bond type. Lastly, if ang atong makuha nga En difference is greater than or equal to 1.7, that means your bond type is ionic. So muna siya ang gamit, no, sa pagkuha sa En difference sa connection nato sa polarity. So as what we can see here, pag ang ato ganing makuha, ang imuhang makuha na answer is baba or equal to 0.4, your what's tawag ni? Polarity would be non-polar covalent. So kasagaran gud ang gamit ani sa bond type, no, pero pwede nimo siya ma-classify as non-polar. Whereas, kung 0.5 to 1.6, ang imuhang bond type is polar covalent, so ang molecule is polar. Lastly, if pataas or equal to 1.7, ionic ang imong bond type. So, dili siya polar, dili pud siya non-polar. It's ionic. So, muna siya ang ato ang buhaton or ako ang further i-explain sa inyo ha karong adlaw. Okay? So let's take for example kani nga problem. I think examples na ta. So as what you can see here in your modules, gisunod lang nako ang inyong modules, no, pati ang mga examples. So as what you can see here for number 1 nga example, I forgot what page, basta kay just follow, no, and use your modules. For example, in example number 1, we have calcium and chlorine. Ca stands for calcium and Cl stands for chlorine. So, ang una natong buhaton is kanatong first way. And then, I have another for the second way. But preferably, ang akong ginagamit is kaning first way. Kaya wala na ko muagi atong magkuha og absolute value. Ang akong una yung ginabuhat is kwaon na ako ang mas dako nga value, i-minus na ako sa mas gamay na value, and then equals. Automatic. As easy as that. Okay, pero for the sake of your module, kaya ang gigamit mong sa yung module is the second way. That is why I'm going to explain it to you here. Okay, so Ca, ang unang buhaton gininyo is pangitaon sa ninyo ang En value sa calcium and sa chlorine using your periodic table. So, if you're going to use the periodic table, you can see there that the electronegativity value of Ca or calcium is equal to 1.0. Now, the electronegativity value of chlorine or Cl is equal to 3.0. Second step is get the difference. Remember, in the first way, you are going to write first the bigger value. So, atong gikuha is ang kaning sa Cl, 3.0, gi-minus na ko sa smaller value, which is 1.0. Syempre, 3 minus 1 is equal to 2. Diba? Automatic na siya. Using the table, identify the type of bond. Remember ko itong gipakita nga table a while ago? So, you are going to you're going to use the table to determine what type of bond ang naaani na molecule. So, you have 2.0 man. So, yung imong tanawan ang imong table kaganina is naa siya sa greater than or equal to 1.7. Tama? Unsa ang bond type sa greater than or equal to 1.7? Diba? Ionic. That is why kaning bond between Ca and Cl is an ionic bond. Dili siya polar, dili po siya non-polar. It's an ionic type of bond. Now, sa inyong moduling, ani ang pagkabuhat. Right? If we're going to look at your modules, ing ani ang pagka-process niya para makuha ang En difference. So, the first step for the two ways is the same. You need to find the En values of calcium and chlorine using the periodic table. Now, you can see here, your En value again is still, for calcium is still 1.0. Ang sa Cl is still 3.0. Now, unsay nakalahian ni og kani? Kani siya is gigamit niya una ang Ca. So 1.0 minus 3.0. Syempre, if you subtract a larger value sa imong smaller value, it will result to a negative number. So mo na siyang answer dira is negative 2.0. Remember, in your table, walay negative values, right? That is why you need to get the absolute value first. So, sorry, na siya error diri that this should be negative 2.0. So, negative 2.0, get the absolute value. Your answer would be 2.0, which is the same actually with the other way. That is why I use this way rather than this one. No? Then, same, using the table, identify the type of bond. So, 2.0 falls in the greater than or equal to 1.7. Tama? Kay, diba, greater than 1.7, ibig sabihin, 1.7 pataas. So, ang 2.0, dito siya na-fall. Therefore, the type of bond is ionic bond. I hope that you can follow on my explanation. Second example, ako gining gihurot ang 5. So, second example is between Cl and Cl. This means that your molecule is Cl2. Okay? So, a chlorine and another chlorine atom, i-bind nimo siya. What is the type of bond or what type of molecule can you form? So, wala na ko'y gibutang nga second way kay pareho lang yun kaayo ang first way o second way because your En value for Cl is still 3.0 man. So, unsay buhaton? Get the electronic difference of one Cl atom and the get the electronic difference by subtracting the En value of one atom of Cl and another En value of your Cl atom. That is why you have 3.0 minus 3.0. Obviously, the answer would be 0. Using the table, identify the type of bond. Syempre, 0 falls in asa? Less than or equal to 0.4, which is non-polar covalent bond. Kung tanawon ninyo ako ang pink na table kaganina. Okay, so that is how you get the electronic difference of Cl and Cl. So basically, Cl2 is a non-polar molecule. That means wala siya positive nga charge, wala po siya negative nga end. It's because the electrons are distributed equally. Okay? Next, let's proceed with another example, which is HCl. HCl will form hydrochloric acid. No, gamay lang na trivia. Hydrochloric acid is one of the strongest acids. No, and it is found inside our stomachs. Atong tiyan, it has HCl, and it can melt different types of substances, of course. Sige, so let us proceed with the first way. So first things first is you look for the En value for hydrogen, which is 2.1, whereas the En value of chlorine is 3.0. Then we get the difference starting with a bigger number, which is 3.0 minus 2.1, which is the smaller value. That is equal to 0.9. Now, kung atong gamito ni siya, we're going to look for 0.9 in the table. Dito siya na-fall sa 1.6 to, dito siya nag-fall sa 0.5 to 1.6. Therefore, HCl has a polar covalent bond. Therefore, HCl is a polar molecule. Okay? Now, let's look at your way in the module. Mo nga nilang gibuhat. So, same lang gihapon ang H 2.1, ang CL 3.0. Diri lang is gigamit nila una ang 2.1 rather than the bigger value which is 3.0. Obviously, kung imo ni siyang i-minus, you will result to a negative number. This is negative 0.9. Get the absolute value of negative 0.9 equals 0.9 na positive. Therefore, lastly, use the table and then you will arrive with the same conclusion that HCl based on 0.9 electronegativity difference value is a polar molecule or it has a polar covalent bond. Next is a bond between sulfur and oxygen. So what could be the type of bond for these two atoms? So first way, find the electronegativity value of S or sulfur. Uy, sorry, wala na ako na edit. ENS dapat ni for sulfur. So electronegativity difference of S is equal to 2.5, whereas the electronegativity value of O or oxygen is 3.5. Now we are going to get the difference between the two numbers, starting with the bigger value, which is 3.5 minus 2.5. That is equal to 1.0. Now 1.0 falls under 0.5 to 1.6. Therefore, the bond between sulfur and oxygen is a polar covalent bond. Okay, 1.0 man siya. Second way, which is used in your module, is this. So find the electronegativity value of sulfur, which is 2.5, and for oxygen is 3.5. In your module, ingani ang gibuhat, 2.5 diretso, smaller value, minus 3.5, which is a bigger value, and you will arrive at a negative 1.0. Get the absolute value of negative 1.0 and you will have positive 1.0. Same thing, 1.0 falls under 0.5 to 1.6. Therefore, that is a polar covalent bond. Lastly, tapos na to. Okay. Sa 5, I forgot to change this one. So I will just leave it to you. I'm so sorry. I forgot to edit this one right here. No? So palihog lang ako adjust ha. Sorry kay okay, nagmadali lang si teacher. Now, supposedly this is C and N, or carbon and nitrogen. So first thing, we need to find the En value of C or carbon using your periodic table. Now, the electronegativity value of carbon is 2.5, whereas the electronegativity value of N or nitrogen is equal to 3.0. Now, let us get the difference. I-minus nato silang duha starting with the bigger value. So, 3.0 minus 2.5. Your answer is 0.5. 0.5 falls under 0.5 to 1.6 sa atong table. Therefore, the type of bond between C and N is a polar covalent bond. Okay, next is the second way, which is used in your module. We have there C, or for electronegativity value for carbon, which is 2.5, and nitrogen is still 3.0. I-minus ato derecho using first the smaller value, so 2.5 minus 3.0, which is the bigger value, and you are going to arrive with negative 0.5. Now, negative 0.5, get the absolute value, and you will have a positive 0.5. Using the table, we are going to arrive with the same answer with our first way, which is polar covalent bond. All right. So I hope that you are following and you can understand now what your module means, no? Ang mga calculations din ha. mo na siya ang iyahang pasabot. All right. Now we are going to dig deeper. We are going to dig deeper in the difference between polar and non-polar molecules, especially once we are trying to illustrate them. No, ato silang i-drawing using a molecular geometry. So, dito first sa polar molecules. Again, polar molecules have dipoles, which means na siya partial positive charge, na siya partial negative na charge, which means your molecule has an uneven distribution of electrons. Okay? So, their dipole moments do not add up to zero or do not cancel out, thus leaving a net charge. Mo to kung gingon ganina nga dili man siya mag-cancel out, that is why naa kay mga net charges, na kay positive or negative charge. So example of that is katong kaganina, no, HCl. We also have NH3 or ammonia. Now let us try and illustrate the polarity of molecules. First, in the first step in this process is pangitaon na po nato ang EN values using your periodic table. Okay, so we have, for example, we have HCl, katatong gisolve ka ganina. So remember that the electronegativity value of hydrogen is 2.1, and then the electronegativity value of Cl is equal to 3.0. So kani wala tay buhaton nga minus. We are not going to subtract anything because that is for electronegativity difference. But we are going to analyze no kung asa ba diri sa duha ka atoms ang mas kusog mo bira og electrons, and kung asa dira ang hinay mo bira. Always remember that the higher the electronegativity value or EN value, mas taas pod ang iyang electronegativity. Therefore, mas kusog siya mubira og electrons. Okay? Kung atong imagine, mura siya og ang duha ka atoms murag nag-tug of war, and pagtaas ang EN value sa isa, mas kusog siya mubira compared sa kaning isa. That is why diri ang higop sa ato ang electrons. Okay? Electrons, again, are negatively charged particles. So, katong kusog mo birag electrons, mo to siya ang more negative. Whereas ang katong hinay mo bira, mo to siya ang mahimong more positive because nabira man ang iyahang mga electrons. Okay? So karon, ang next ato buhaton kay naatay duha ka symbols na inyong timan-an. Okay? A bond or molecule with positive or negative charge ends is also called a dipole. So mo ni siya, dipole ni siya. Natay duha ka ko ana inyohang dapat tinwan-an. Kani siya. Okay? Kani siya nga symbol. This is a symbol for partial positive and this is a symbol for partial negative charge. Nganong ing-ani man ang nahitabo tapos nganong ing-ani ang illustration sa ato ang molecule. Okay? So ang tanaw na to og balik ang imuhang electronegativity value sa imuhang HCl. So ang H nimo tungo atong tan-awon dinhi, the H or the EN of your hydrogen is 2.1 only. Whereas ang electronegativity value sa imong Cl or chlorine is 3.0. Therefore, kung atong i-compare ang 2.1 ug 3.0, kinsa man ang mas taas? Siyempre, obviously, ang 3, no? Ang 3 mas dako sa 2.1. Therefore, kinsa ang mas kusog mo bira sa ilaha? Yes, ang Cl, di ba? Mas kusog ang bira sa imuhang Cl compared sa imuhang H. Therefore, si Cl higupon niya ang or i-attract niya ang electrons sa imuhang H nga atom. So, unsay mahitabo? Si Cl mahimo siyang mas negative kay ang atong electrons kay negative man ang charge. That is why ang imuhang Cl is naa siya partial negative nga charge. Okay? Tapos kaning imuhang other end, no, ang other end is positive siya. Nganong positive gani siya? Because ang ihang electrons gi-attract na karon sa imuhang chlorine. That is why ang nabilin sa imuhang hydrogen is positive nga mga protons, right? So, ang nahitabo, ang imuhang H na siya partial positive nga charge. That is why, kung atong tan-awon ang iyahang illustration diri, mas dako, mas bulging ang ato ang Cl because mas gi-attract niya ang electrons to itself. Tapos, ang nabilin sa hydrogen kay halos-halos na lang protons. That is why gamay siya og bulge. Okay? Now, another way is to draw arrows. Okay? So, muna siya ang arrow nga dagway. So, kanang arrow nga na ay plus, murag na siya cross, that is an indication that this atom is more positive. Tapos, ang kanang arrow nga na ay kuan din arrowhead, meaning diha padulong ang imuhang mga electrons. Since Cl has higher electronegativity compared to your hydrogen, that is why the arrowhead is towards your Cl and the positive nga end is towards your hydrogen. So that is how we illustrate the polarity of molecules using these symbols. Okay? Whereas for nonpolar molecules do not have a positive or negative end. Their dipole moments add up to 0 or cancel out. So as what you can see here, we have BF3. So we have boron and 3 fluorine atoms. Sa imuhang makitaan sa imong arrows, tanawa, 'di ba? Wala siya kanang dito lang tanan padulong ang electrons because your electrons are evenly distributed to all your terminal atoms. That is why wala ni siya charge na molecule. That is why you call this a non-polar molecule. Same with CCl4. No, so sa imong central nga atom is your carbon, right? And attached to it are 4 chlorine atoms. So these are your terminal atoms. Now, as what you can see in the arrows here, evenly distributed ang imuhang electrons. Ang imong C diri padulong to uban, ang uban diri padulong diri, ang uban padulong diri, ang uban padulong dito. That is why wala siya charge, no? Wala siya partial positive or partial negative charge. That is why you can call these molecules as non-polar molecules. All right?